overturned by the courts. And so sometimes it takes time. But this administration from day one said we're going to implement the Supreme Court's Bostock decision that says sex protections include LGBTQ people. We're going to put forward briefs in these challenges to these anti-trans cases. And the Justice Department has stepped up and said that these policies that we talked about earlier are both wrong and have sided with the LGBTQ community in those court cases. And obviously, over the next several months and years, we'll see more from this administration to step up and to stand out for trans people's rights, for all people's rights across this country. But it's really, I think, critical that we recognize the power that the executive branch has in standing up for trans people and how significant it would be for our community if in 2025 we don't have a pro-equality president.
Sarah, we're going to have to leave it there. Democratic State Senator Sarah McBride running for Delaware's open House seat. I'm Amy Goodman. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. Thanks for joining us.
.3 WBNY Buffalo, brought to you by the mandatory student activity fee here at Buffalo State.
Sun shining, birds are singing, and all feels right in the world.
Until the season changes and suddenly everything seems darker, less lively, and you lose your motivation to get out of bed.
If you struggle with depression, you're not alone. In fact, 1 in 5 people experience some form of depression, and no matter the time of year, it may affect your behavioral or physical ability to live a happy life.
At the American Psychiatric Association Foundation, we understand what you're going through, and we're here to help. Our vision is to build a mentally healthy nation for all, because we want you to live your best life and be your best you all year round. We work every day to eliminate stigma, combat mental illness and substance use disorders, and advance mental wellness.
If you or someone you love needs help, you are not alone. Please visit mentallyhealthynation.org to learn more.
91.3 FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM, WBNY, Buffalo.
All right, here we go. Living for the people. This is L. Nathan here. Welcome to our broadcast, focused on providing you insight into events shaping our national and regional world and the facts behind those events and policies that are shaping our world for today and for tomorrow. Join us weekly on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. following Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! Program. And of course, our program is live, so you can call and you can join our discussion. We really hope that you will. Our number here again is 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. Get the phones ready. Let's get enjoying this discussion. We're here with Norm McCarter, who is our in-studio audience of one. Welcome, Norm.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Hare.
And we're here with our citizen of the 21st century who actually understands all of this IT stuff that we're using to be able to live stream this program. Welcome, Willie H.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan here. Just want to make a quick announcement. July 21st, 22nd, I'm setting up a PA. So there's going to be I'll give you more information about it. It's going to be a 24-hour worship thing. I'll give you the address and stuff later. But stay tuned for that. July 21st, 22nd, all 24/7, continuous praise and worship.
Wow. Okay, let's get to that.
Yeah.
So listen, while we're getting ready to pray, let's talk about what we need to be praying about. How about that?
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's great.
So I'm going to title the first segment of today's program, Mounting Evidence. Mounting Evidence. You know, one of the things, and we're talking about this Donald Trump stuff, I'm having issues with, and maybe you're having this issue too, so hopefully you'll call in, about this. I'm having issues with what appear to be obvious crimes, just out and out obvious crimes. I issue a subpoena through the Department of Justice. The subpoena is accepted by a federal court. They order Donald Trump to produce, information, or at least get out of the way and let me go and search through the information to figure out if there's stuff that you have that you shouldn't have that belongs to the federal government. If I find that you kept the documents, or you stole the documents, or you burned the documents up, or you flushed them down the toilet, which there seems to be evidence of all of what I just said, there seems to be evidence of that already in the record. Why isn't this man already in jail? Why is he in the street when wherever he is, if he's not under lock and key, he's cheating somebody, he's lying to somebody, he's taking something from somebody, because that's what he does.
Right.
That's what he does for a living. I just don't understand why for him, you have to come up with all kinds of exotic, proofs that, this was in his mind on, Thursday before Saturday, before the December 18th, 2021 meeting all these different things you have to do for him. If I'm in a room and you're in the room and a shot goes off and it hits me and we see you with the gun, the odds are pretty high. You're the one who shot me, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, do you have to produce intent? Did he really mean to shoot Nate? Or was he just shooting and Nate happened to get in the way of the bullet?
He shot you, sir.
Okay. Whether he intended to do it or not, it's still a crime. Okay, right? Now, I don't understand the logic that we are being asked to accept as a nation for him. I just don't get that. But I went to an article written by Tommy Christopher. This was in the media. How do you say it? Media 8, their website. And this was looking at a report on Caitlin Collins' research, her reporting on aspects of what we were just talking about. She has been basically interviewing people around Jack Smith, who is a special counsel hired by the Justice Department to further the investigation into whether or not Trump and his associates have committed crimes against the United States. And what she's found is that every time we turn around, they say we're close to the end of the discovery of whatever material was needed to conclude that Trump did or did not deserve to be indicted for his behavior. And so what Collins is reporting is that Smith has drilled down on what she refers to as a bonkers Oval Office meeting in which, among other things, Trump entertained the idea of declaring martial law. Now, when you start saying things like, well, we could issue martial law, declare martial law, and then we could take the voting machines. Yeah, and then we could have the U.S. Marshal's Office tell us what the machines say. Now, those U.S. Marshals, they work for me. I'm the president. They're in my chain of command. Can you imagine what that would have been like? I mean, if that's not Soviet Russia.
Actually, that kind of did happen, right? Without him having he didn't have the full support of some of his constituents, but that's what he wanted to happen. And actually in the room, if I'm not right, they were arguing over that, correct, Mr.
Not only arguing, they almost got into a bash in the head fist fight, over this thing.
Right.
Because you had cone heads around, that's insulting cone heads. Cone heads have citizenship rights too.
Okay.
But Donald Trump being the lead cone head, right, he's got these people around him who are advising him on ways to be able to do something that is out and out sedition. Why would you have people in your presence arguing with you about how you could commit sedition, how you could commit a coup or effect a coup and overthrow the government of the United States and replace it with your government? Why would you even have people like that in the room where you are?
Well, and there's evidence of it. He actually tried to do that because he tried to get the votes. He even when he didn't get that, he said, well, he told his constituents or his people that was for him, listen, you guys do whatever you got to do.
Listen, if he had any integrity at all, he would have called the U.S. Marshal's office and said, you come and get these people. Sidney Powell be the first one. Come and get these people because these people are treasonous, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what Caitlin Collins has been working on. You remember she was the one that did the interview with Donald Trump but 3 or 4 weeks ago, where Trump actually admitted that he knew that he had classified documents in his possession, and he was, because he's kind of slow-footed, in his head. How you get to be president of the United States and be slow-footed in your head, I don't know, but somehow he was able to do that, and wasn't able to answer her question in the cunning way that he wanted to answer it. Because part of Donald Trump's problem is he's so full of himself. Yes. Whenever you ask him a question, he wants to make himself central to the answer.
Seem bigger.
But you can't be central to the answer unless you're the one doing the talking. If you're doing the talking about something you're not supposed to know about, you're just indicting yourself because you start telling people something that you're not supposed to know. So the reporting team of Caitlin Collins, Paula Cohen, Sarah Murray Reed, and Caitlin Polance, they were the ones who actually did the reporting that developed this story. They talked about this December 18th meeting in 2020, which included Mike Flynn, Rudy Giuliani, and Sidney Powell, who floated these just outrageous proposals to Donald Trump that he entertained. Caitlin talks about, how does this go? She talks about this December 18th meeting where Trump, 6 weeks after Trump had lost the election, where this lawyer, Sidney Powell, who also Mike Flynn, who was the former national security advisor, and the former CEO of Overstock.com, a guy named Patrick Byrne. Why he was in a meeting of White House officials, I do not know. Does that give you like a special pass? If you're the CEO of a private company, that you get to go to a White House meeting? It seems to me that CEOs are citizens. That doesn't get you into the White House to be a part of policy discussions, in the White House. What was Patrick Byrne doing there in the first place? But martial law was brought up in this December 18th meeting. And so was the idea of having the U.S. military seize the voting machines. Pat Cipollone, who was a former White House counsel, Caitlin Collins reports that he said when she interviewed him that he said that he was not happy to see these people in the Oval Office. And she asked him why. And he said, because I don't think any of these people were providing the president with good advice. Duh. Stealing voting machines, not good advice. Declaring martial law because you lost the election, not good advice, okay? Hiding documents that belong to the people of the United States, not good advice. How smart do you have to be to know that those three things are not good advice?
That's Trump.
Why didn't Pat Cipollone stop Trump in the meeting and say, listen, you can't have this stuff being said to your face. If they got to say it, they got to go out in the back, down Washington Boulevard, behind C&B's bar, and say that stuff, in the back next to the garbage cans. You can't say that stuff in the White House, and you certainly can't say it to the President of the United States. What's wrong with you? Why didn't Pat Cipollone stop him right then and there?
Well, obviously, with the argument, there was probably somebody saying something like that in those walls when they had that meeting. So,
well, they should have used their fists.
Well, I think that might have been worse.
Act like you mean it. You know, when you put the knuckles on somebody, I think they get the message that you mean what you say, right? Yeah. So I'm sorry, I don't want you all running around here hitting people and whatnot. I'm just saying you got to be a little more forceful than it appears Pat Cipollone was in this meeting. Derek Lyons, who was a former White House staff secretary, said that at some points in this meeting, people were shouting at each other and hurling insults at each other. This is the White House. This is the Oval Office of the White House. You can barely get a person to smile in that room. You got people that are shouting at each other in the White House, hurling insults at each other in the White House. How are these people still around Donald Trump? How does that happen?
Well,
go ahead, Nora.
Mr. Hare, it seems to me that under Trump's candidacy and while he was in office, I've never seen so many people that were, I think because I don't know if it was because they opened up and said something or disagreed with Mr. Trump, but they were ousted. They were, you know what I mean? He's lost so many people in his cabinet.
Well,
I just couldn't believe it.
All of the people that were saying the things that were being said in this meeting should have been ousted within 4.5 seconds.
Yeah.
They should have been kicked out the door. The U.S. Marshal should have escorted them to the sidewalk, put them outside the gate, and informed them, if we see you on the sidewalk again, we're going to arrest you. Okay. Yeah. For menacing.
But the thing about it is, with Mr. Trump and the people that are standing behind him, as long as they agree with him, you know what I mean? They rocking with it.
And that really is true, Norm.
Yeah, yeah.
That really is true.
Yeah.
So Sidney Powell, our girlfriend, former attorney for Donald Trump, she says that Cipollone and Hirschman and others, she said that they showed nothing but contempt and disdain for the president. This is Sidney Powell now characterizing other people in the meeting, saying that they were showing disdain for the president in a meeting where the president is in the meeting. How can you be showing me disdain in a meeting that I convene in my office? I'm meeting with you. You're not meeting with me, right? And you talk to me as if you think my head screws on and off. You talk to me disrespectfully. How long do you think that meeting is going to last with you in the meeting?
Not long.
But the meeting went on for hours. It went on into the early hours of the morning. Yeah. Eric Hirschman, who was another of these lawyers around Donald Trump, a former White House attorney, he said that the meeting got to the point where the screaming was completely out there, completely out of control. Rudy Giuliani says to these people, well, the problem is that you all aren't tough enough. He says, you're a bunch of, and then she didn't put in the word.
P-U?
I won't go there. She had a blank space. That was Willie H. who put these.
Well, you said Giuliani. You said Giuliani, so the only thing I could imagine coming out of Giuliani's mouth is you guys up.
Oh my God.
Well, I'm going to leave that with Willie H.
That's Giuliani.
Okay. But that does sound like what Giuliani said.
You guys a bunch of.
So Collins then said that she had learned that federal investigators had asked several witnesses about this meeting, including Giuliani. She was told that Giuliani was called into the Department of Justice on 2 back-to-back days and asked about all of these incidents. The meeting is notable because it came 4 days after the members of the Electoral College met in all 50 states to officially cast their ballots, declaring that Joe Biden was indeed the winner. Now, this is really important to understand. Trump and his minions had been finding ways to overturn the results of the election for every moment of every day from November 3rd of 2020 up to this meeting, December 18th of 2020. And so what were they doing? They were doing things like calling up the Secretary of State of Georgia And I just need to find 11,781 votes. Just one more than he had. I just need one more.
And then we can do this.
Exactly. Use those exact words. We can do this. Right? He wanted that done. He calls up the Secretary of State in Michigan. He calls up the governor's office in Arizona, Doug Ducey's office in Arizona. So he's been doing things over the course of a 40-day period. He's been doing things to try to steal the election away from Joe Biden. Go ahead.
Just a quick question, Mr. Here. Can you please tell me, because I missed it in my notes, I wasn't able to write it down. Who's the guy who, two questions. First off, was he a Democrat or a Republican? But who's the guy that put the phone down on him when he made the call?
Oh, he's a Republican.
Yep, that was a Republican.
He's a Republican.
Right.
What's his name?
So that was Doug Ducey. He was the one that when he was actually in the process of signing the certification of the Electoral College votes that were won in Arizona. He was in the process of had the document in front of him and was in the process of signing it in front of other people. And he gets a phone call from Donald Trump telling him, you need to help us, you just set that aside. We don't have to, accept those results. If you don't certify those results, then we can throw the election in Arizona back to the state legislature in Arizona, and we'll have a different result, for this presidential election. But Doug Ducey, to his credit, didn't even bother to listen to the call. He just put the cell phone down on the table next to him and went on about finishing the certification of the Electoral College.
So basically, what he heard Trump and basically said, "This guy's a clown."
No, what happened was Trump had been talking to him several times. He called him several times over the course of the days before this signing ceremony took place. And so when he got this call, when he was about to sign the certification and he got this call, he knew what Trump was going to ask him about. And he wasn't going to stop at that point and have a conversation on the air in front of tens of thousands of people.
Gotcha.
Oh, yeah, Donnie, we could disrupt the election. Yeah, of course, right?
All right.
And so it's clear that after this certification of the votes by the Electoral College on December 14th, Trump knew that he had no more cards to play. I shouldn't say no more cards. He had no more rational cards to play. So he went to the irrational cards.
Right.
So the irrational cards are, well, how about we just prevent them from certifying the election results at the joint session of Congress? So the joint session of Congress is what took place on January 6th, where the Senate and the House of Representatives meet, and the chair of that meeting, the presider over that meeting, is the Vice President of the United States. Now, the Vice President is the presider over the Senate, in the sense that if there's ever a tie vote in the Senate, the vote that breaks the tie is the Vice President's vote. Otherwise, the Vice President doesn't bother to vote at all. But the Vice President has a sort of statutory relationship to the Senate. Well, it doesn't end there. The Vice President has a statutory relationship to the House of Representatives, because when they call a joint session of Congress for the purpose of tallying the Electoral College votes, the presiding officer of that meeting is the Vice President of the United States. But that Vice President doesn't have the authority to say, well, this vote should count, this vote doesn't have the authority to do that. All that person has the authority to do is to ask the representative of that state, Mary Jones, you're the representative of state, 36B, what were the Electoral College results in your state? And Mary Jones reads off the Electoral College votes.
Gotcha.
You have a secretary, of the joint session of Congress who actually writes down, tabulates, or puts in the computer, what the results were that are said by that representative for that state. That's done for all 50 states. It's done for all of the territories. It's done for Guam, Papua all these territories the United States has responsibility. Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, all their electoral college votes are tabulated this way. Once they're done, they're done. The vice president doesn't get to do anything other than say, this person got this many electoral college votes, this person got this many, some other person got whatever number that they got. You need 271 or 272 electoral college votes to win. This person has 331 electoral college votes. That person won. Period. Then you clap, and then you bring out the beer and the pizza, whatever it is you normally do at the end of these meetings, and then you go home. That's what's supposed to happen. Donald Trump said, well, my opportunity here is to prevent that from happening. So when we keep talking about you have to have proof of the intent of somebody, which makes no sense to me. If you steal from me, I don't need to know that you meant to steal from me. If the stuff was mine and you took it, that's all the intent that I need to know. You stole from me, right? If you didn't intend to steal it, you meant to just borrow it for several hours, that's irrelevant, okay? You stole it. So in this case, Donald Trump was actually, or what we're being asked to do is to determine Donald Trump's guilt for stealing stuff on the basis of whether or not he intended to steal the stuff, or he intended to commit sedition, that he intended to obstruct, the joint session of Congress. And that's a very difficult assignment to be able to prove something like that. But if you think about all the things we've just said in this program today, the proof is there. It's like the UFO people. The proof is out there. Yeah. Right?
So here's my question, Mr. Hare. With the truth being out there, and the process of being indicted and everything, all the things that have come up against Mr. Trump, so far he's been able to kind of deflect everything. And my question boils down to this: if he is convicted and found guilty of these things, number one, will he be able to run in 24?
Yes.
Even if he's guilty.
There's no law that exists in the Constitution, or no provision in the Constitution, and no law that has been enacted in this country,
Mr. Hare,
that would prevent a president from continuing to run for office, even if he's under indictment, even if he gets convicted, and even if Willie H. finally puts this man in jail. Even if that occurs, he could serve as president of the United States while sitting in a jail cell.
Wow.
Well, see, this
only if he remains a Euro-American person. If it was you,
okay,
you would not be allowed to do that.
But see,
okay,
this is what I'm saying, and I'm asking this in a very sincere way.
This is reverse affirmative action, Dan. I'm sorry. This is just so irritating to me. It provokes me to say things I probably shouldn't say.
Well, I'm asking what does it say about us as a people? Even when it boils down to the fact of who we elect, and the people that are with him and agreeing with him, and they're constantly, saying it, giving him attaboys and everything for the things.
A lot of churches too. You'd be surprised.
It's just I can't understand this.
It used to be, if we were in the 1970s, if you were to talk in real racist type ways about somebody, you would be shunned. You know what I mean?
In the 70s.
Right. It wouldn't just be that people say, you can't say that. It wouldn't just be that people would object to you saying something like that. You as a person would be shunned. You'd be ostracized, from everybody else.
Right.
Because that was unacceptable, right?
Yeah.
Well, what's happened here is Donald Trump made being a criminal acceptable.
Yeah.
He made lying acceptable. This man is on the record, according to Politico Online magazine, is on the record from January of 2017 to December of 2020. He is on the record for having stated at least 30,000 different lies.
Ooh, 30,000.
Wow.
30,000 different lies. He lied all the time. I mean, we're talking about 12 or 1,300 days of a presidency. And over the course of that time period, this man lied to the people 30,000 times. That's like 30 lies a day, every single day. So what happens is you get used to the fact that this man lies all the time. You accept the fact that, okay, I can't take what he says seriously because the man just lies all the time. To now, you actually ignore the fact that he's lying. In fact, if he says something that's like half true, you start running around telling people, see there, he said something that was half true. You know, he's not completely crazy. You know,
and that's what they say.
Right.
It's like, okay, he may not be fully, but he got a point.
Right.
And we agree with that point.
Right. See,
so we rock with him.
He's just basically beating us down by constantly doing wrong. He's made us accept doing wrong as if it's okay. Not that it's right, but we accept it as if it's okay. We don't react to it. Yeah. And that's what Donald Trump has done. That just didn't stop with lying. That means all the things that Donald Trump has done. When you and I were young, if the House of Representatives or the Senate issued a subpoena to you for you to show up to a meeting, you showed up to that meeting because you knew that you would be in trouble with the U.S. Marshal's office if you didn't show up.
Right.
Well, Donald Trump just says, no, we're not showing up. We're not responding to that subpoena, and you can't arrest us because I'm the president and the U.S. Marshal's office works for me. So since they work for me, I'm going to tell them not to arrest you. And so how are you going to enforce the subpoena? You can't. So just shut up and go away. I'm not making that up. That's what he did, right? So this has gone on over and over and over again. I mean, the disparaging of the executive, any executive office that doesn't roll the way that Donald Trump wants them to roll gets disparaged in his government. He disparages the courts. He told a judge who has a Hispanic name, but he's actually a second-generation Hispanic person. His parents had migrated from Mexico, but he was born and raised in the United States. He talks about this guy as if he was a protector of drug dealers, that he didn't like, Donald Trump. He hates me, because he's of Mexican descent. What does me being of a Mexican descent have to do with liking or disliking you? But that's what Donald Trump did. And of course, his fan base, the people, that 20,000 people show up to his meetings and whatnot, they agree, even though they have no other information than just hearing Donald Trump run his mouth about it. On the basis of that, they all come to hate, this Hispanic judge. So he disparages the judiciary. He disparages the other executive departments. He treats other nations as if they're footstools, for him, or you're not going to do what I want? Well, then bump you, I'll just cancel my relationship with you, and did it. We had a deal with the Pacific Rim countries on the west side of the United States. So this would be, Laos and Vietnam and Japan and Korea, South Korea. You can't do anything with North Korea, but South Korea, and so on. We had a relationship with those Pacific Rim countries that was forming, called the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which would have put the United States in the lead of creating these trade agreements between ourselves and these countries that were actually sucking business away from us, work opportunities, because they were able to produce goods and services at a much lower labor cost per hour than we were able to produce them in the United States. So this is what the Obama administration had been trying to work out so that we could make this a more fair, relationship. Had that all worked out, but his second term was ending. So this stuff had to be implemented in Trump's first year in office. The deal was already done. The arrangements were already made, just had to sign off on the deal, but couldn't get done because Donald Trump didn't want to do it because it didn't come from him. As a result, we backed out of that Trans-Pacific Partnership deal. China, which was not a part of the deal, is our competitor. They moved in. Now, guess who the big dog is for the Trans-Pacific Partnership? It's China. And all these people in Congress, these Republicans, oh, China's our enemy. China's doing terrible things. Well, if you had left this thing alone and let the deal that Obama had worked out with the Pacific Rim countries, if you had let that stand, you wouldn't be in this position with China that you're in right now. And then, of course, they never speak about that.
Yeah.
And your media doesn't speak about it.
Well, Trump found a way to put a spin on it to downgrade Obama and kind of make him seem like he couldn't finish the deal, it seems like. And then
we tried to make it seem like it was a bad deal.
Okay.
It wasn't giving enough to the United States.
Yeah.
Right? But most deals require that I get something and you get something. That's why it's a deal. If you get something and I get nothing, that's not a deal. That's highway robbery.
Yeah, yeah.
So listen, we got to take a quick break and talk to our sponsors. So don't go away. We will see you on the other side of the break here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY.
To protect his home and family from disaster, Steve used courage, wisdom, and his camera phone.
That should do it.
Way to go, Steve! By simply taking digital pictures of his family's important documents, Steve can always have them stored safely online, no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
91.3 FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM, WBNY, Buffalo.
All right, welcome back to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan Hare, your host. We're here with Norm McCarter, who's our in-studio audience of one. Welcome back, Norm.
Thank you, Mr. Hare.
And we're here with our engineer and producer of our live streaming of the program, Willie H. Welcome back, Willie.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan Hare.
And so let me just talk a little bit more on this mounting evidence of Trump's, in my view, Trump's guilt. And then I want to get into a little bit on the Ukraine, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. But Joyce Vance, I know you've probably heard her on a number of reports that she does with MSNBC and CNN. She was writing in her own website, Civil Discourse, she was writing that that there is a lot. I'm sorry. Let me back up a little bit. The court has released a less redacted view of the subpoena application that was submitted by the Justice Department to the federal courts to force Trump to give up the materials that he had in his possessions that they believe were classified documents. And when they first gave these or made public the application for this subpoena, they had so many redactions in the documents that some pages were just all black lines and maybe the date, or something was visible on the document. So the judge has gone back and forth with the Justice Department on what they felt they could and could not allow the public to know. So they sent out a revised version of that affidavit that has less redactions than the earlier one. Still has an awful lot of redactions on it. But the important thing is that a lot of the unredacted stuff that they now see has to do with allegations about the different ways that Trump and his co-defendant, Walt Nauta, who I think is Trump's valet, tried to keep that they tried collectively to keep the classified information stored at Mar-a-Lago from coming to light. The security camera, I don't know if you all are aware of this, they have a security camera or an array of cameras that cover the hallways, that look at the doorway into the storage room that Trump says that these documents were being kept in. And so you could go back and you could review the video tape of what went on during a particular time period. So the security camera video showed Nauta removing boxes from the storage area where Trump acknowledged that he had kept classified documents. The videos, which are also mentioned in the indictment, showed that just ahead of a visit to Mar-a-Lago from the Department of Justice officials to take possession of any remaining classified materials pursuant to the subpoena that had been approved by the courts, Nauta removed 64 boxes from the storage area at Mar-a-Lago and placed them in various locations within Trump's residence area. He eventually returned boxes back, but they counted how many boxes came back. Only 30 boxes came back. Now, I mean, maybe it's my math, but you took out 64 boxes, you brought back 30 boxes. That means there's 34 boxes that we need to know what happened to them, right? Mm-hmm. So the current location of the boxes that were removed from the storage room but not returned to the storage room, according to this document, those boxes are unknown. So more than half of the boxes that had these classified informations left the storage room and went to points where they don't know. From my point of view, that's a crime in and of itself. Yeah. Why do we have to go any further? Lock him up. That's what he said about Hillary Clinton. He said, lock her up. Well, they should lock him up. So what is also puzzling, the fact that the boxes were removed at all seems obvious obstruction of the Department of Justice investigation. How much more obstruction can you be? You're trying to get access to these boxes that you know where the boxes are, that you got them on video. You get a court to approve an order for you to be able to come and pick up those boxes. Then you say, I'm coming tomorrow to pick up the boxes. And between tomorrow and today, 64 boxes wind up leaving the storage room, and then only 30 boxes come back. And we see you, Nauta, moving the boxes. How much more evidence do you need? I mean, the crime is in front of you.
Mr. Hare, does Mr. Trump have, I mean, maybe is it diplomatic? Why can't they just go and just get the boxes? And
here's my view. This is my view. And Norm, you think that I have a conspiratorial nature and whatnot, and you might be right. I accept all criticism. But from my point of view, when remember the time sequence in which this stuff takes place. Trump leaves office on January 19th of 2017. The National Archives and Records Administration begins to formally ask for these classified materials back from Donald Trump in, I believe it's April or May of 2017.
And that's not a problem. Them asking, that's not a big problem.
Right.
Not a big problem.
Well, I think it's a problem that they had to ask in the first place.
But let's give,
okay, because
we'll give them
because Willie believes in allowing people at least 4 crimes.
Yeah, let's ask him for just in case.
You get a mulligan for 4 crimes, right?
Just in case. Let's give them. Let's ask.
So the issue here, from my point of view, is, or what I think is implied here, is the Justice Department employees in the early spring, the late winter and early spring of 2017 are largely still the same people that Donald Trump had appointed to the office.
Right.
Because, Biden would have to come in and figure out, well, who's who where. He wouldn't know these people until he had got in a position to look at their records and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So it probably took him, and he's doing the work of the president, so it probably took several months for him to be able to go through the profiles of all of the people that were in appointed positions around him.
Mm-hmm.
So you probably have a lot of people that were Trump sycophants that were still working in the Justice Department in the spring of 2017.
Well, Mr. Harry, here's my take on this. Why can't they just say, forget the Justice Department and get the FBI, get a search warrant, and go and get the boxes?
That's true, but remember the FBI is a subset of the Justice Department. They work for the Justice Department, so it's the same people.
It's still the same people. I'm trying to go with a different grouping of people.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so the reality is, even though the FBI has the resume of being, these big time, detectives, and they do all of this, muscle bound stuff and whatnot, the reality is the FBI is amongst the most conservative, can I just be blunt?
Be blunt,
not just conservative, they're among the most redneck people in the entire world. Okay. I mean, who do you think was, enforcing, the racist profiling and racist governance of police departments and sheriff's departments and officials related to law all around the country? It's them.
Right. Not only that, we already know that when we see January 6th, what happened, we see those people riot and go in and get into.
They were kissing and hugging the rioters.
Right. Now, cause we know that, because if it was our color, people of color went in, they wouldn't even be able to get through the door. They would have been probably shot down. We know
what would have happened if you had been the January 6th rioters, because in May of 2020, when George Floyd got killed, when that man kneeled on George Floyd's neck until he broke his neck, until he suffocated this man to death for 9 minutes, almost 10 minutes, and grinned at a young girl who was taking a video, of the murder that he was committing and whatnot. What happened in those protests there? And those weren't black protests; those were mixed race. You see, black and white and every other kind of people, in this country were involved in that protest. But the police went crazy.
Right.
What happened in Kenosha, Missouri? Police went crazy, and so on. Right. So if it's African people or people that don't, or people that don't flow with whoever they consider to be the real Americans that the FBI wants to defend, right? When it's their people, we have to prove intent. It was they didn't really mean to break all those windows. They didn't mean to take that helmet and smash you in your face. It was an accident. But if you did it, okay, they want you to be brought up on treason. They actually said this. Now, I'm not making that up. They said that these protesters of the murder of George Floyd, they should be brought up, the Black Lives Matter people should be brought up on treason and so on, right? So it's a completely different standard. So let's not be surprised. That's what I'm actually trying to point out, that the FBI and the Justice Department, in my view, radically underreacted to what Trump was doing rather than reacting positively, in a aggressive way. If it had been me in control of the Justice Department and I'm looking at a video and I see Trump's homeboy taking boxes out of the places where you've already told not just me, you told the judge that these boxes were in this storage room right over there. Here's images of the boxes. And then 24 hours before I'm having the DOJ come out and pick up those boxes, you start moving the boxes out of the storage room. You take 64 out and only move 30 back in, and you have no record of what happened to the other 34 boxes. That would have been enough for me to arrest people right then and there.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Mr. Hare, let me just ask this. Does NARA have the capacity to go in on their own?
NARA doesn't have any police authority, but NARA is the possessor of the presidential documents.
Right.
So what NARA can do is issue a subpoena, a demand that those documents be produced by a date, and that's what NARA did. They issued a subpoena to have those documents recovered and put into the hands of NARA. The problem here is that Trump ignored the subpoena, and nobody did anything about it. So every time you don't obey something that we historically have always obeyed, you have now delegitimized that thing. And so the second time you do it, you say, "Why I didn't obey you the last time? Why would I obey you this time?"
Right.
And then the 16th time that you do it, "Well, I haven't obeyed you the last 16 times. Why would I obey you now?" So now you have a governance that is ungovernable. Yeah. You can't govern now because all the rules that used to apply no longer apply, and you're not doing anything about it. The reality is that they always talk about Congress as if it's a uniform thing. But the way the world works now, when the Republicans are in control of Congress, they all vote the same way. And they don't vote for justice. They vote for whatever is in their political self-interest over and over and over again. Yeah. Democrats, you can count on Democrats. If they don't like you, they'll vote against you, or your proposals, even if it's what the Democratic president wants. They'll still vote against it because that's how Democrats are. They're a big tent, party. But the Republicans aren't like that anymore. And what's going to happen is both parties are going to become more and more extreme. Sooner or later, the Democrats are going to realize we can't get anything done unless we all vote the same way all the time. So they'll start behaving like the Republicans are behaving. And this is going to pull this democracy apart. You see these countries that operate with these parliamentary systems where you got 60 different, political parties, and this party has 2 votes in the parliament. This party has 8 votes in the parliament. This one has 40 votes in the parliament. And so in order to cobble together a government that represents a coalition of those people, you have to bring a lot of people together that don't really like each other, right? And they all have to vote the exact same way in order for you to get anything done under that administration. We're going to end up being that kind of a country. And I'm pretty sure that Americans are not going to like the country that we're going to wind up being. So what's possible is that Trump was using his lawyers and the legal advice that his lawyers were giving him about how the subpoena process would work to conceal his crimes. He was actually using his lawyers to conceal crimes. That also is a felony crime. You can't use your lawyers to conceal a crime. Why would that be? Because the law in this country permits you to say anything on earth you want to say to your attorney, and your attorney cannot repeat it to anybody other than you forever.
Right.
That's attorney-client privilege, which obviously is necessary in order for you to be able to have a healthy relationship between your attorney and the client of the attorney. It has to be that way. So, given that, Trump was using that as a way for him to create a trap. He would actually involve his attorneys in making representations to the Justice Department and to the federal court to make representations that all of the documents that could be found had been found and had been turned over to the Justice Department. when in fact that had not occurred, and he knew that that had not occurred. So, and I don't want to miss this before we break here, because I want to get to this war thing. But Trump knew this because they found on multiple documents. I'm quoting now from, this is the report that I had given you from Joyce Vance. They found on multiple documents that they contained what appeared to be Donald Trump's handwritten notes on the documents themselves, which means Trump can't claim that he never saw the documents, which he was trying to say before. Well, it wasn't me who moved these documents. It was somebody else. They may have been doing it for me, but I didn't know what they had done. I didn't know what they had kept. I didn't know what they didn't keep. That's what Trump was claiming. But when you see that the documents have Trump's handwriting on them, where he took notes and wrote the notes on the documents, he can't say he didn't see the documents, no. Right? Now, even if he claims that, well, yeah, that's true, but I still didn't know where the documents went. The documents were physically in your hand because you wrote on them. How did they leave your hand? Whose hand did they go into? Document that. And if Trump can't document that, he's the one who did it. That to me is the core point here. So enough on Donald Trump. We got just about 7 or 8 minutes in the program. I came across a report. I've been just trying to keep up with what's going on with this Ukrainian stuff. Every time we have this radio silence on Ukraine, it tells me that something bad is happening in Ukraine, and they don't want us to know about it, so they just don't talk about it at all. So the report that I'm going to give you is it's not going to be as in-depth as I would like it to be, but it may help us to understand a bit about what is taking place. I went to a report that was in the 1945 website by Steve or Stavros Atlamazoglu. That's how you pronounce his last name. And what it talks about is 232,000 Russians are either dead or have been wounded in this war with Ukraine. 232,000. Now, I don't know how many people are in Russia's standing army, but 232,000 people sounds like a pretty big chunk of your standing army, probably somewhere in the area of 10% of your standing army. The Russian military is stalling. It's been successful in slowing down the Ukrainian counter offensive that they promised they were going to be engaging in about a month ago. It appears that over the last 4 weeks, the Russians have lost at least 20,000 of their troops and hundreds of weapon systems. The losses are forcing the Russian military to draw units away from from across Russia, weakening the Kremlin's overall national security readiness. For 32 days, the Ukrainians have been attacking and probing the extensive Russian defensive lines, excuse me, in search of weak spots that would pave the way for a much-needed operational breakthrough. I'm surprised we haven't gotten any calls on this. Let me just make sure we give that number again, Willie. It's 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. You got enough time to get a call in. Please do. We'd like to hear your thoughts. Using extensive defensive lines with mutually supported fortifications, anti-tank ditches, trenches, and miles upon miles of minefields, the Russian forces have been stalling the Ukrainian attacks. Although the Ukrainian forces have made progress in several areas, they haven't achieved the kinds of gains that they had achieved early on in the war. But to be as effective as they have been so far, the Russian military has resorted to cannibalizing its national security posture. The Russian Ministry of Defense has relocated units from across the country to the front lines in Ukraine, weakening Russia's borders, which means that those countries like Lithuania, Belarus, Soviet Georgia, Chechnya, they may be deciding, There aren't as many Russian troops, facing us now as there were a month ago. Maybe this is a good time for us to tell Russia we don't want to be a part of your federation anymore. This could get really crazy. And I need for us to understand this contextually. It's not just that Russia or these satellite states around Russia, border states around Russia, it's not just that they may feel bold enough and brave enough, since they don't see as many Russian forces facing them, that they would try to break away from Russia themselves.
Yeah.
It's not just that. It's that the Russians will react to that, and they got to react with fewer forces.
Yeah.
So their reaction is going to be more of a mechanical reaction. They're going to be sending bombs and poison and, whatever it is that the Russians do, to get control of an area. And there's no telling where this may lead. This is like when you pull on, yarn, you know what I mean? And you just think, well, let me just pull this thread off. And you pull the thread and there's more thread. And there's more thread and more thread. And before you know it, the thing you were pulling the thread on, it's all completely, pulled apart. Go ahead, Mark.
The other day, we discussed this. I tried to ask you, how come they don't just form an alliance and try to all come together against Russia? And these countries are very pugnacious. They're ready to go. I think that this is the perfect time to strike against Russia. And the way that they've been trying to rule with an iron fist, it's time to take them down.
And Norm, there are seeds that are already planted and roots that have come out of those seeds. The plants that have been grown out of those seeds have deep roots. Mm-hmm. One of those deep roots has to do with race that we don't talk about. We always think of Russia as a white Eastern European country.
Yeah.
But if you live in Soviet Georgia, one of the dominant political forces in Soviet Georgia is Islam, because many of the people that live in Soviet Georgia are the descendants of Islamic people who either migrated or invaded, those territories. When Islam was spreading out of the Saudi Arabian Peninsula and they were having success in spreading Islam across North Africa, well, they were also spreading Islam into Southwest Asia. And so you started seeing Islam spreading into areas like Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, in Soviet Georgia. Soviet Georgia has gone toe-to-toe, fist-to-fist, with Russia in the past. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in Soviet Georgia that still have a memory of the Russian invasion of Georgia. Russia put the muscle on Georgia to keep them in the Russian Federation. I'm sure there's a lot of people that were injured in that, who are the kids of people that died in that Russian intrusion into Georgian land. Mm-hmm. There probably are some people there that are thinking this may be our time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And they may move them out
because it seems as if during this war, they've been very formidable against Russia. You know what I mean? They've stood up to them and like you say, went toe to toe. So yeah.
And you got to figure Kazakhstan, same thing. You got a Muslim population in Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
And they were muscled by the Russians too. They may not feel, all that friendly, all that warm to Russia right now. They see the Russian troops are moving back. They may decide this may be our time. Chechnya, where they blew up the nuclear power plant over there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The Chechens haven't had a real positive relationship with the Russian Federation either. This may be their time. Belarus may decide, well, we just got 30 nuclear warheads placed on our territory. Maybe this is our time.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to be silly about this. I'm saying that there are possibilities here.
Yeah.
And the more strained Russia's military becomes, the less muscle they can put on those other territories, because they got to use that muscle to control whatever they're trying to do in Ukraine.
You've got to be opportunistic when you have the chance and the time. So this seems to be the time.
That sounds like Michael Jackson. Remember the time.
Yeah.
So I know we're near the end of our hour.
Oh, we way over. We over.
But I just wanted to get that thought in our heads, thinking forward, that this may become a dominant theme, addressing what's going on in Russia as a consequence of this Ukrainian war. I thank you all for listening to us and supporting us. We look forward to talking to you all on Monday here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY. We'll see you all then.
Directed by his red